I put out a poll a couple weeks ago asking you guys which top 10 MCU video you guys wanted, and the majority vote goes to the top 10 MCU movies ever. Here they are. Before I get started, I want to know your list. What is your top 10 MCU movies down below in the comment section? The MCU is awesome, so there's going to be so many different movies in your guys' list than there is in mine. My list has got some very controversial opinions in here, so I just love to talk to you guys about that. I got several hot takes in here, and I'm very excited to share them. Like I said, I want to know your hot takes and all. Not even hot takes, just your top 10 down below. And with that said, while you're down there, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another video coming in the near future, rather. I'm having several more videos coming out this week, so stay tuned for those. And with that said, let's get started with my top 10 MCU movies. Number 10, Ant-Man. Now, like I said, this is going to be a hot take because a lot of people don't have Ant-Man on their top 10 list. But for Ant-Man, it is not only one of the most rewatchable MCU movies, but it is just one of the best. And really, what makes it so compelling is that it's just a fun genre blender of a film. It's inside the MCU, but it manages to be a action comedy while also being a heist film inside the MCU. And it's just so unique that I can't help but watch this movie 2 or 3 times a year just because of how unique I find it to be, especially the heist aspect in here. Because when you get to the heist stuff, it does it really well in vein of Ocean's 13, other movies in that kind of vein. And so I find that the fun genre blender stuff really works. With that also said, Paul Rudd, I think, is phenomenal in this film. I think he's great as Ant-Man. He's just one of the best characters out there. While his trilogy isn't the best, Ant-Man and the Wasp is not the greatest. I find the movie to be fine, but Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is terrible. His trilogy is not the best, but I'm glad that he got one really good movie with it being his first film, and Paul Rudd is awesome. The story and the way it fits into the MCU, I think, really works, where it's a kind of a unique thing, where it's Ant-Man. It's not Fate of the World stuff, but it ties into the greater MCU because he's trying to stop a weapon from getting into Hydra's hands. But he's Ant-Man. He's not doing it for, like, save the world or anything. He's doing it because it's a heist movie and because of other things he's got. And so the way it ties into the MCU, I think, is just kind of perfect. I genuinely do think it's perfect the way it ties into the MCU. And it's more unique than other films. You have more unique aspects in this film that I genuinely, though some of the stuff this film does, it doesn't get talked about enough. I genuinely don't know why people don't love this movie as much as I do. With that also said, Yellow Jacket is a great villain. Some of the emotions and areas that go in near the end of the film, I think, really work. So, for me, this is one of the most unique and most entertaining MCU films out there. Number 9, Iron Man 3. Again, I told you it's going to be a hot take because Iron Man 3 is my number 9. This is a great Shane Black action film inside the MCU. Shane Black does some really good action films. I think he did The Other Guys. Well, he did do The Other Guys. I think that's the name. Either that or The Nice Guys. There's too many The Blank Guys movies. Okay? But he did that, and he is really great director. He does exactly what he wants to do here. Again, it proves to be one of the more unique MCU movies where you have Iron Man losing his powers and he has to rely on other technology and stuff to get to his goal. And just the pacing and everything that's done with the Shane Black aspect is great. The action sequences are really good. Specifically, just because of the direction that Shane Black does, he is really good at other films he does, and he brings that nature here, and it proves to be a more unique MCU movie, and it's just the kind of MCU movie I like, because it fits inside this Iron Man trilogy, while still fitting a Shane Black action vehicle. And speaking of the trilogy, I think it's a pretty great ending to the trilogy. Now, obviously, we got the ending completely erased with Avengers Age of Ultron, where he's back as Iron Man. But for a specific Iron Man trilogy, the ending that he is deciding to throw all his suits away, get his heart fixed for Pepper, I think is a great ending for his personal trilogy. I don't hate the twist either. That's a big thing, that a lot of people don't like this movie because of the Mandarin twist. I don't hate it, especially because in Shang-Chi, we got the Mandarin, the actual Mandarin. And so when we don't get the Mandarin in here, when the twist, I don't think it's great, but I don't hate it. And so that helps. So I thought this movie was a great Shane Black action vehicle. And it's, again, just like Ant-Man, a movie I'll throw on 2 or 3 times a year. Number 8, Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, this works as a James Gunn ensemble film. Everything he does so well in his normal films, where he's got this entire cast. Every single character has something to do. Every single character has a plot line. Every single character has an arc. He does so perfectly well in here with characters that we love. Introduces us to Peter Quill, Rocket, Groot, Drax, Gamora, and you love every single one of these characters. And every single plotline that these characters go for, you are rooting for them. They are very funny. The cast is perfect in here. You got Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel's Groot, which is hilarious, and of course you got Dave Bautista, and you love this cast here because they feel like a family. Their banter is perfect throughout the very beginning of the film until the end, where we start to feel like a family, and it gets to the emotional stuff that you want here. The movie can be very emotional, which really works in its favor, especially because you love these characters, and you get to the ending where they finally turn into a family, they get the Power Stone, they kill Ronan, and it's some great stuff here, and it's what James Gunn does so well in every single project he has. Also, Ronan is a fantastic villain. Obviously, I love Ronan. I think the way that Ronan fits in with Thanos is kind of setting up Avengers Infinity War, which would happen, I think, 4 years later. Yeah, this came out in 2014, Infinity War came out in 2018. Kind of sets it up, and this in Avengers is kind of like the beginning of that. And I think it really works here, and the stuff that they do with Ronan really works in this movie. And also the action is really good. I mean, again, it's stylized. James Gunn is a great director, and he can direct action sequences very good. So this one is a film I really love. I love these characters, and why I don't think the rest of the trilogy, and this might be a hot take, not might be, this is a hot take. I don't think the rest of the trilogy is that great. I think that this first Guardians of the Galaxy film is really perfect. Number 7, Thor Ragnarok, and this is prime example of fitting into the MCU. This is a Thor movie, whereas sets up all these plotlines, finishes out the Thor trilogy, while we also get answers to other questions that we want in the MCU. Where is Hulk? Where's Banner after Avengers Age of Ultron? Well, here he is in this movie. What's happening with Loki? Well, here he is in this movie. It answers questions that were set up earlier in the MCU, while also answering them and playing a great story. Because the story of Ragnarok here, I think, is fantastic. The direction by Taika Waititi to take over is great. Not to say that Thor: The Dark World and Thor are bad movies, because personally, I've always had a soft spot in my heart for them. I never thought they were great, but I always thought they were watchable and good. This movie takes it to the next level. It turns from a good movie to a fantastic movie because of the direction of what Waititi did. Unfortunately, Waititi learned the wrong ideas and wrong lessons with this film when he made Thor: Love and Thunder. But Taika Waititi is a great director, and he makes this film funny, makes the characters funny, while also having the emotional moments, all the action sequences you want, and the great Ragnarok story. Along those lines, Hela is a fantastic villain. She actually has a threat here. Just from those trailers alone, when you see she breaks the hammer, you just know she's a big threat, and brings apart Ragnarok, which I've been a fan of mythology my whole life, and seeing it happen inside the MCU, I have always thought it to be great. So this movie was a funny movie. It works inside the MCU, and again, is one of the MCU films I will turn on every single year. Number 6, Spider-Man No Way Home. The first of 2 Spider-Man films on this list, and No Way Home has to fit in here because it is an emotional and fantastic ending to Tom Holland's Spider-Man trilogy. Tom Holland's Spider-Man trilogy is my personal series inside the MCU. I love Tom Holland as his character, and I love Spider-Man, so obviously it's got to be my favorite trilogy. But the ending here is fantastic. Not only do you get all the fan service and all the villains that you've seen in other movies and the other 2 Spider-Man in there, which is perfect, but it's emotional. And you have all of that inside this film, but then you also get the ending to Peter's story. The ending to the MCU Peter's story. You get Aunt May in here and her death, which was shattering. I saw this in the theater, and this was, I managed to not get it spoiled for me because I was several weeks late. But man, when that happened, I was absolutely shocked. Like, genuinely shocked. And the stuff that they do, the stuff that they make it so emotional in here, works so well. I've heard a lot of people say that the movie just doesn't get better on rewatch, it actually gets worse, and I can kind of attest to that. The script is not perfect every time I watch it, but because it rounds out this trilogy, and I think at the end, such a fantastic way, where Peter makes everyone forget him, so emotional, and we're getting Spider-Man 4, I think, next year, and so, I mean, it's just such a great ending. And then, obviously, we got the fan service stuff. I mean, it's great. The interactions between Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield are fantastic. So nice to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in here, specifically Andrew Garfield, because I personally do believe he is the best Spider-Man out there. And so their interactions were great. And then we got to see Dr. Otto Octavius, Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin again, Alfred Molina, like I said, of Dr. Otto Octavius. It's just so cool and nice seeing these characters again on screen. So it works as fan service, but it also is a perfect closeout to Tom Holland's trilogy. Number 5, Spider-Man Homecoming, the first film in this trilogy, and another one that is on here. I absolutely love this movie because it works as a teenage Spider-Man. We've never really got, I'd say in the other movies, Spider-Man movies that feel like you're a teenager. Like, obviously, you got the original Spider-Man, and he's on a teenage trip, but you never really get the teenage aspect to it. And then you got Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, and he's in school and stuff, but you never really felt the teenage aspect of it. This one really was. It's Spider-Man trying to balance being Spider-Man while also having schoolwork and all of that. And it also is kind of a smaller story. It's not like Fate of New York or anything. He's just trying to stop the Vulture from stealing Tony Stark's stuff. It's such a cool story, and it just so much works for the vibe of this movie. It's a teenage Spider-Man. He has the teenage problems, but he's also trying to do the right thing by being Spider-Man. And it's so perfect. The stuff that they do with that is phenomenal. And again, makes it one of my favorite MCU movies. On top of that, Michael Keaton is a phenomenal villain in here. I just love his character. And the twist that we get, genuinely, when I saw this film for the first time, I think it was in 2017, so I don't know how old I was, but I was young, and I didn't go see it in the theater. We rented it from Family Video. God, I miss Family Video. We rented it from Family Video. Me, my mother, and my brother watched it when my brother had friends over. He's watching Captain Underpants in the other room. And I swear, as soon as that twist turned up, my whole family was shocked. Like, me, my brother, and my dad were shocked. Like, it's the biggest twist that I've seen that my entire family goes, what? Like, it's such immersive because you care about the characters, you care about Peter and his romance here with Liz, and then you get that twist. And it is so effective and so cool. Michael Keaton is a great villain. So this film, every single time I watch it, manages to just be so perfect and so effective. Number 4, Iron Man. This is a perfect start to the MCU. I find this film to be incredible because it has Tony Stark, this kind of douchebag character that you don't really like at the beginning of the movie. And you have him transform the entire movie. You have him go from douchebag to Iron Man just because of the one thing that happened to him. It's the example of a perfect origin story where you have the charm, the dangers of it, and the payoff where finally when he turns into Iron Man and starts killing all the bad guys, I think it manages to be effective. Everything that is in here works. It's a movie that manages to tell a perfect story of Iron Man, but then I can't imagine watching this movie when it first came out because as soon as at the end of the movie where Nick Fury pops on screen, you're finally seeing what's going on. You're like, oh, that's interesting. Because that was 2008. It's completely different than now where you know that Superman's a shared universe. In this movie, you probably knew it was a shared universe, but you didn't know what that meant because there wasn't that much shared universes in 2008 as there are now. And so just how cool it was to merge all of that inside this movie that just works as an effective movie. It has great action sequences. They're all immersive. The visuals still really hold up for being from 2008. And so this is one that I revisit every year. My brother watches this one all the time because Iron Man is really great. It's really great. And because we have 2 Iron Man movies on here, it is another favorite personal trilogy inside the MCU. Number 3, Captain America Civil War. Now, Captain America Brave New World came out. I have a ranking of every Captain America film on the channel already. Go check it out. Obviously, it was number 1 because Captain America Civil War is great. Now, I'm going to take this moment to show off because I haven't showed this off yet. And I'm sitting here for a reason. My Captain America Brave New World popcorn bucket. Ain't that cool? Ain't that cool? I've gotten into collecting popcorn buckets this past year. Like, I have Dune Part 2, Venom 3, and Gladiator 2. And now I have Captain America. Also, You open it from the back of the head. Enough for the popcorn bucket. Civil War is great. It has a great Captain America film, while managing to be a fantastic Avengers film as well. You have the Captain America stuff, and the stuff that closes out his trilogy with Peggy and with Sharon Carter and the Bucky plotline. It also works as an Avengers film. It works as messing the Avengers up. Works as that, but the main focus is Captain America. It doesn't get Captain America confused for an Avengers film, because you have the Captain America stuff, but then you still have the Avengers stuff, and it merges so perfectly in here. The action is great ever since from the very beginning with the Bucky highway fight sequence to the very end where Captain America, Bucky, and Iron Man are fighting. It's all shot great. The Russo brothers are fantastic directors, as you'll see in the next two here. But, I mean, great action sequences all around. Also, the way that they introduce so many characters is awesome. This is the movie that introduced Black Panther and Spider-Man. Two big MCU characters were introduced in a Captain America film, and never once does this film feel crowded or overstuffed with plot lines. It feels paced perfectly, and I think it really, really works in here. Also, Baron Zemo is a phenomenal villain here. I mean, the way that he just wants to break up the Avengers because his family died in Sokovia. That's it. It's not because he wants to rule the world or anything. He's just getting revenge, and his plotline is so great. And the scene that goes back to my mind is where he takes a gun, about to kill himself after succeeding. And what Black Panther does, take the gun and say, you lost. But he also won. He also won. He broke up the Avengers, but he also lost and is going to jail and doesn't get what he wants. So I think Baron Zemo is a phenomenal villain in here. And the ending is great. Sets up what the conflicts will be for Infinity War and Endgame with Tony and Cap, but it also just like leaves you, back when I first saw it in 2016, I was like, whoa, where's it gonna go? And when I first saw it in 2016, I was never a fan of the Captain America trilogy like I am now. I love these movies, and it's the only one that is in my top 10, but I do love these movies. But back in 2016, as much as I was like not the biggest fan of this movie, I was still always like, ooh, where are we going? Where are we going next in here? And it's a great ending to the Captain America trilogy. Number 2 and 1 are going to be Infinity War and Endgame. Which one do I think is a slightly less best? Endgame. Number 1 is going to be Infinity War. Number 2 is going to be Endgame. This is a satisfying conclusion to the Infinity Saga, man. This conclusion is fantastic. You get all the emotions, all the character payoff, all the action stuff to close that out. I rewatched Infinity War and Endgame just a couple months ago, and by the time this film was over, I was in tears. I don't cry that much during movies. I do cry sometimes, but like not a whole lot. I was sobbing my eyes out by the end of the movie. Genuinely was. Just because it is so effective. These are characters that we have cared about for so long, and you get that funeral sequence where you see all these characters for Tony's death. It is such satisfying and emotional payoff to this Infinity Saga. The end fight is phenomenal. The final hour of the movie with all the characters fighting. You could see that it could be overstuffed at times, but it never really feels overstuffed at all, because you have all these characters, and during this fight they have several payoffs and all that. And the way the fight ends, again, with Tony snapping the fingers, I think is a perfect ending to his character arc in this entire franchise. The time travel aspect was really surprising. When I first saw this movie back in 2019, again, didn't see it in the theater, but unlike Infinity War, I avoided spoilers because I didn't see Infinity War in the theater either. And with this one, the time travel stuff was such a surprise to me. I think it works really well. Such a unique and interesting way to reverse what happened in Infinity War without feeling forced or anything. I think it works. And obviously, combined with Infinity War, Thanos is a fantastic villain, one of the best MCU villains. So Thanos, obviously, perfect in here. But my number 1 is Avengers Infinity War. And what makes this one perfect is because you get the cast interactions that you've learned from 2008 to 2018. 10 years, you met all of these characters. And in this movie, you finally get their interactions. You finally get to see what it would be like if Thor was with the Guardians of the Galaxy, or if the Avengers went to Wakanda. It feels so connected, and it's so cool, and it's awesome. Being honest, when I first saw this movie at a family video, I didn't like it. I genuinely didn't like the movie. But now, I love it. It's my favorite MCU film. I absolutely adore it, because it's just so rewatchable. It's such a rewatchable film because of the character interactions, the payoff, the setup for the fantastic movie Endgame. All of that works inside of this film, and it's awesome. The action here obviously is awesome. I mean, you get all these action set pieces that just really work in here. You feel the danger. People die. You feel the danger, and it really works. Thanos, like I mentioned, is a phenomenal villain. His setup here was great, and when he throws Gamora off the cliff, it is just so emotional and proves that he does love something, and I think adds some weight to him. The film, like I said, is also emotional. It's not as emotional as Endgame, but when you see these characters get snapped away and die, it's great. And the best sequence in this movie is Gamora and her death. That is such an emotional sequence. And then the movie's just awesome. That's the final note I have written down, is that the movie's just awesome. I mean, for real, this movie is incredible. Like, it's awesome. And I love watching it 2 or 3 times a year. This is my comfort movie. This, and honestly, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, I think these are my top 2 comfort movies. And it says a lot, because I love this movie. Thank you guys for clicking on my top 10 MCU movies. What are your personal top 10 down below in the comment section? Do you agree with my list, or is there some things you would have changed? Would have loved all that and more. With that said, subscribe.